What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, February 17th. I hope everybody's day is off to a good start, or at least, depending on where you're viewing from, perhaps ending on a high note. Who knows? Obviously, Thomas, DC, Canada, suffering through a massive winter storm right now. I've been paying attention to the chat, watching what's going on. So hope you guys, everybody, anybody, everywhere, staying warm or staying cool if it's warm where you are. I don't know. But I want to be inclusive and not tell everybody to stay cool in case you're in a cold climate, or tell you to stay warm in case you are in a warm climate. So, yeah, off to a bit of a weird start, I guess. Just rambling like a lunatic. Perhaps reading too many Trump quotes has rubbed off on me in a bad way. Anyway, before we get going here, I do want to take a moment. My son, 16 years old, is currently getting his driver's license right now. So I'm a little today, a little worried, a little concerned, a little scared and anxious. So just bear with me for that, because yeah, this is a big day for him, big day for my anxiety. But you know, it's a part of life, and I know he is very excited. So good for him. It's also, by the way, my daughter's birthday today. She is turning 15. My son waited like 6 months after his birthday to finally get his permit, so he had to wait a year. That's why he's getting it today. So yeah, big day for cars and expensive insurance for me. So you know, somebody, I don't know why this just called my attention here. Nick 8817 says, Farron, how come you don't go on Damage Report anymore? I loved going on Damage Report. John Idarala, obviously phenomenal guy, fun to talk with. Like, we always had such a great time. And I would go on his show quite regularly. Same thing with the Dr. Richie, who is just phenomenal. Love him, by the way. But it got to the point where I was doing too much between this channel and Ring of Fire every day. Plus, I still had my day job. Plus, I still had my other job as the executive editor of Trial Lawyer Magazine. It was too much. So when you do that show, it's an hour and a half long. And unfortunately, I didn't have an hour and a half to spare on any day. So I did, unfortunately, have to tell them, like, look, I'm really sorry, but I can't, because they asked me a lot, and I felt so bad anytime I have to turn somebody down. And eventually I told them, I was like, look, I can't do it anymore at all. Unfortunately. Things have kind of changed now. Perhaps I should reach out to them and be like, hey, but I don't know. Again, like, I am super busy these days, and I don't want to overextend myself. That was one of the reasons, the big reason why I ended up leaving Ring of Fire is I had to shed some of the things that I was doing because I was spreading myself too thin, and it was overwhelming, and it was too much. So I do, there was no like bad blood. I wasn't like, oh, I'm not going on TYT. No, it was, I don't have the time to do it, or at least I didn't. And now, because I have free time, we get this. So, I think that's a pretty good trade-off. One more thing to address real quick. Somebody says ROF just isn't the same without you. Well, thank you very much. And I think based on their new About Us thing on YouTube, I think, because I haven't heard from anybody from there, I think something has changed again over there. I don't know what. I'm hoping one of them tells me, but their About Us is different. The names are different again, so I don't know what's happening. I would love to know. I still care about Ring of Fire. I want it to be successful, so I'm not sure what's up. But Anyway, also real quick, feather in our cap here at Fair and Balanced, and by ours I mean me and Gary. We're the only two associated with this. Sunday was my birthday. Um, and on that day, we had the second highest traffic that we have ever had on this channel, which was very weird for a Sunday with no live stream. So I want to thank you all for that wonderful birthday present of the second best day that we have ever had here at Fair and Balanced. The best day, for some reason, was last year, April 22nd, just a random day when traffic went insane. We were like 60,000 total views shy of beating that day on Sunday. Somebody says ROF has two hosts, weekdays and weekend. Not according to their About Us anymore. So again, I don't know. But I happened to see that yesterday because I do go to that channel every day and I look at it and I watch the stuff. And it's now different. Another question I want to address here before we even get into this topics. I'm sorry, but y'all are just on fire today and I love it. Has Farron ever gone on Brian Tyler Cohen's channel for an interview? I have not. I've never been in contact with Brian Tyler Cohen, unfortunately. And I'm not the kind of person that he probably would interview. Like, he's interviewing Obama. And so I don't think it's going to be like, hey, and if you liked Obama, tune in tomorrow for Farron Cousins. Everybody's going to be like, who? What? Why? You're interviewing like the coolest guy in the planet, and then you're like this bald weirdo? Yeah. So no, unfortunately, I haven't done that. I wouldn't hesitate to do that, but I'm this, and he, talks to people that are like here that are actually have real important things to say, like aliens and whatnot. I wouldn't be able to offer any kind of, juicy stuff like, yeah, we've got all this crazy stuff. Here we go. 40 nations are currently in talks to basically cut the United States, because of Donald Trump, out of global trade. There are 195 recognized nations/countries on planet Earth. 195. 40 of them, led by Canada, banding together to just cut out the United States. So more than 1/5 of the planet working on a way to not have to deal with the United States anymore. This includes our neighbors to the north, Canada, our neighbors to the south, Mexico. This includes the European Union and the United Kingdom. This includes major Asian countries like Japan. According to these reports, and again, this is kind of all being, spearheaded by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, what they're trying to do is avoid all of the tariffs that Donald Trump has put in place on everybody. And then, of course, they have typically had to do reciprocal tariffs. So everything for them gets more expensive because they're dealing with the United States. So all of these nations have gotten together and said, wow, dealing with the United States is expensive and it's costing us business. How do we get around that? And their solution is, well, what if we all just trade with each other and not these idiots? And that is currently what they're working on. So instead of relying on the US market to sell their goods, they're going to just start selling to each other and open up new markets that previously hadn't been there. They will grow. They will expand. They will see this financial boom from doing business and trading with everybody in this new coalition. And we, those of us here in the United States, will lose everything. Oh, sure, we'll still have to buy their goods because we depend upon them, and Trump will still have the tariffs, so we'll still pay a higher cost for that. But our goods here in the United States that are already having a hard time selling overseas, just ask any farmer, we will lose those markets. Farmers who are already facing financial ruin, which is exactly what they told Congress about 3 weeks ago, they're going to go under. They will lose everything. Manufacturing here in the United States will go extinct virtually. Because sure, we'll still need to make some things to sell to us here in America, but we're not going to have other countries coming to us, knocking on our door saying, hey, can we buy all this stuff from you? Foreign companies that have invested in the United States, or at least pledged, as Trump says, they'll pull out. They'll go with their new trading partners. They'll move their plants to Canada. Maybe they'll move them to Japan or Europe or anywhere else in Asia, or perhaps Mexico. The United States, if this coalition does, do what they're hoping to be able to do, the United States will never financially recover from that. We will lose a century worth of progress on global trade, becoming the global superpower, both militarily and financially. And all of that will be wiped out by one guy, one demented moron, Donald Trump, will literally destroy this country. Everything we have built, everything that took generations to create, gone in an instant because of Donald Trump. And I said militarily, and some folks may be thinking, well, we're still going to have the military. With what money? With what money? Right? We're going to give them $1 trillion this year. You think we're going to be able to keep doing $1 trillion a year on our military when we have no foreign investments into this country anymore? When people are losing their jobs left and right and we go back into a Great Depression? The government's not going to have enough money to fund that massive military. We're going to have to start selling it off, trying to raise a little cash. That's what will happen. So we will lose that military dominance. We will clearly lose the financial dominance. A new currency from, another country or group of countries will become the global standard. The dollar will lose value. Our investments will mean nothing. And the Dow being over 50,000 for 1 hour will be a distant memory. But that is what the rest of the world, or at least a fifth of the world, I should say, is working on right now. And they're dead serious about it. And that is going to absolutely destroy this country. And I'm not saying I hope they don't do it. We kind of deserve it. So we'll see what happens. Some super chats that I want to address here. UK Freedom Audit says, we hate Trump in UK too. I'm so happy that Cardi isn't putting up with bully boy brains, always Trump's brawn. Yeah, and I want to applaud the rest of the world for doing this. This is smart. This is good, but it's going to crush us. So I'm a little torn. I don't want to get crushed. I don't want to see our economy collapse. I would love to see the military, reduced, but the economic pain that's going to come before that, that's going to be terrible. And it's going to be generational damage. It's not like we can get a new Democrat in office and he's like, hey, everybody, the tariffs are gone. Let's all be back to trading. They will have established these new things. We will no longer be needed. So it's not like we can just jump back in and they'll disband their coalition. This is permanent damage because they will find these new partners and no longer need us. We will be the needy country going around begging like, please buy our stuff. We'll sell it to you dirt cheap. Come on, man. Yeah, it's going to be awful. V-Man says, did you hear Marco Rubio say he isn't Cuban, but American of European descent? This is the thing with conservative Latinos. They think because their ancestor came to Latin America from Spain in 1600, they think they're European. Jesus, no, I hadn't seen that. Oh my God. Uh, wow. No, that is crazy that he's out there claiming that. Oh my God. Uh, I'm sorry. That's the most ridiculous thing that Marco Rubio's maybe ever said. Thank you for pointing that out. I don't know why the dogs are barking. That's weird. Michael Oakley says, Farron, what are your thoughts on some other left-wing content providers, especially the channel Parker Get a Job or Adam Mockler? I've heard of Parker Get a Job because I've seen that name. I've never seen any of the content, but from what I know, it's good. Adam Mockler is good, really good. Other content creators, I have no problem with anybody. I have no beef with anybody. I don't ever want to be that kind of person that's like, I'm going to go out and do this horrible thing and say mean things so I can get in a fight for some Twitter clout. I don't do that. I don't ever want to do that. I don't ever want to offend any of those folks because everybody is doing a good job. Do I agree with everything everybody else always says? Absolutely not. And they don't agree with everything I say, and that's wonderful too. But 95% of everything all of us do is on the same page. We all want the same things. So I really do like all of them. And I'm not just trying to be this like kumbaya guy, like let's all be together and hug. No. What I want is for everybody to be successful in their own way. I want everybody to be able to get the message out. I want everybody to be informed and intelligent about it. But I want everybody to succeed because when they succeed, the country does better, right? We're getting the word out. We're getting information to people, and that's what matters. So that is what I want to see happen. Monkey in the Works says trust arrives on foot, but leaves on horseback. I like that quote. So V-Man brought up Marco Rubio in Cuba, which V-Man has a tendency to kind of, I don't know, it almost feels like sometimes you know what I'm about to talk about next, which is kind of weird, but we are very frequently on the same wavelength because the next story here happens to be about Cuba. On Monday, Donald Trump was asked about the sanctions that, of course, he has placed upon Cuba that are causing hospitals to close down. They are causing people in the country to starve. And when asked about these, roughly 4 weeks of sanctions that are crippling Cuba, Trump bragged about it. He's glad people in Cuba are starving. He's glad that these people have nothing. People who are not enemies to the United States. They're not the ones with the communist government. They're just human beings trying to live their daily lives, right? And Trump's glad that they have, in his words, nothing. Here's what Trump told reporters. Cuba right now is a failed nation. They don't even have jet fuel for airplanes to take off. They're clogging up their runway. I have Marco Rubio talking to Cuba right now, and they should absolutely make a deal. It's really a humanitarian threat, I'll say. So we'll see how it all turns out, but Cuba and us, we are talking. In the meantime, there's an embargo. There's no oil. There's no money. There's no anything. There's no anything. It's a humanitarian threat. Listen, you, Donald and Marco, are the humanitarian threats to Cuba. You want to spark change in Cuba like the United States has been trying to do for 70 plus effing years and failed every time, Democrats and Republicans alike? The closest we got was during the Obama years when he was like, yeah, we'll lift, the Cuba travel restrictions. And then Trump immediately put them back on. You want people in Cuba to have better lives, to maybe get a better government? Totally normalize relations with the country. Allow Americans to go there. Allow them to come here. Allow us to trade freely with them. Let the people of Cuba no longer be closed off from everybody else and finally realize, like, hey, wait a minute, like, what they've got is pretty good over here. We should have that here. We should demand better. We should do better, right? If you want regime change, you don't do it by shutting people out. You do it by welcoming them in and letting them get the taste for it, and then letting them demand the change. There is a great quote, and I hate to quote Marvel movies here. I don't. I love it. But in Captain America Civil War, the villain of that film, Baron Zemo, he says, an empire toppled by its enemies can rise again. But one that crumbles from within, that's dead forever. And the opposite is also true. If we go in there looking for regime change and we just oust the government because we're their enemies and we put new people in and okay, great, it's all, no, it's going to devolve into hell. Don't believe me? Go visit Iraq. But if we let the people change it from the inside, then it's changed forever. But we in the United States as a government, through, again, generations of leaders, are stupid. We're just dumb. And we think that we're just going to take out one guy. We're going to get Fidel Castro with exploding cigars, which, yes, was an actual plan by the CIA. And we've failed. For over 70 years, we failed. And we failed, and we kind of led to this situation because we're the ones who backed the dictators that were in place prior to the communist takeover. So we've been meddling in Cuba probably for over 100 years, screwing up their government, and now Trump has the audacity to brag about starving people to death in that nation, acting like that is finally going to be the final nail in the coffin. Skeet Sayer says there was a Vice doc that showed how Cuban kids do live gaming. We have more in common as humans versus differences. We just need to be decent. Being decent, unfortunately, is something that is very difficult for the U.S. government. Typically, regardless of whoever's in charge. I mean, we'll see, less evil from the Democrats. Absolutely. I'm not saying they're the same, but we could have normalized relations with Cuba decades ago. And I think we would be looking at a very different neighbor had we done that. Terry Cyan says, the SAVE Act, I'm terrified, many years pessimist. The SAVE Act is god-awful. We actually spent a good amount of time talking about that yesterday, but yeah, we'll see, right? It's still got to get through the Senate. There are a couple Republicans that are like, I'm not so sure about it. So we'll see. Skeet Sayer says the CIA is a continuation of the Knights of the Golden Circle. ATM 873 says Zach Polanski, a great Green Party Britain leader. Thank you for that. V-Man says, Farron, the U.S. claims they want democracy in Cuba. If that were the case, then why did the U.S. back dictator Batista over democratically elected President Carlos Prio Socaras? All Prio wanted was to make Cuba more for Cubans. Yeah. I mean, the U.S. was like a full Batista. Like, we put him in power, overthrowing their government. Like, that's The whole thing is like all these things we hate about Cuba, we did. All the things we say are problems with Cuba, we put them there. Like we created these problems and then came back to the United States, started bitching, and we're like, man, you see all these problems these idiots have? What a bunch of morons. Let's overthrow their government that we just installed. It's insanity. It is utter insanity. Let's move on a little bit. I'm getting phone calls from the county right now, which is weird. Like the school portion of it, I don't know why, but that will have to wait. It may just be the automatic thing, like, your kid was marked out because he's at the DMV, obviously. So I don't know. Anyway. Oh, actually, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. You won't understand any of it until you read that. That is something, thank you, by the way, Pale Horse 6250. That is a book I read many, many years ago. And we had him, God, I forget the author's name, dang it. But we had him as a guest on Ring of Fire frequently. Oh, okay. Sorry. That was actually the DMV, because when my son was up there, he got his driver's license, but their machines were down, so they couldn't print it. And they're calling me to say like, hey, we've got his license printed now if you want to come back up here. So yeah, cool. Another errand I got to go run later, which it just annoys me. I'm sorry. I don't, whatever. Anyway, let's move on. Pam Bondi. So as everybody knows, last week